I am about to give you my all-time U.S. men's national team starting 11. Now, I have been asked this over the years, and it's changed. Obviously, it's changed with time as different players have come in and out, and my philosophy has changed. And I don't want to, don't be a jerk and say, well, your left side's overloaded here or anything like that. This is an 11 that I believe would be awesome, okay? It's not without flaws, but this is who I think would be, who I know would be mine. And as we said, it comes off of the five-a-side question that we had on the last show. Okay, so here we go, Mossy. Ready?
Yep.
In goal, the great Tony Meola. And for the same reason I had him on my five-a-side team, I'm having him on this team. And I will repeat that when it comes to using your feet and distributing out of the back and the ability to hit short balls and long balls with authority and accuracy, there is no one better. And again, the irony of him playing at a time, by the way, he played at a time even when you could pass the ball back to him and he could pick it up. And playing out of the back certainly was not something that we talked about, and it was not revered in the way that it is now. And so I have Tony Meola, who could play in any era, and in particular this era, I think he would be invaluable and be what we looked at as one of the greats when it comes to the sweeper keeper and the start of playing out of the back and the ability to hit those diagonal balls. Keep in mind that the U.S., we may have struggled at times from other positions, but when it comes to goalkeeper, we got a lot of talent. And so I'm starting Meola over the likes of Brad Friedel and Casey Keller and Tim Howard, and the list goes on and on and on. So that's who I have in goal. Thoughts on Tony Meola before I move on?
I mean, you were really going against convention there because I think most people view Brad Friedel, Casey Keller, and Tim Howard as having been of higher pedigree and accomplished more in their careers than Tony. But I know you've always...
Well, they're not romantics because I am going to play a style that does adhere to playing out of the back. And I'm going to believe and die on the hill that possession is good and not to just frivolously give the ball away and not to be pragmatic and actually to practice what I preach and play out of the back. And in order to do that, I am going to go with Tony Meola. And that's not to say that Tony Meola can't save the ball. To your point, I'll tell you a story, real quick story. If you had come out and watched the 1994 U.S. men's national team train, you would have walked away from the field after seeing Tony Meola and Brad Friedel train. And there is not a chance in hell that if you didn't know what was going on, that you would say that Tony Meola should be the starting goalkeeper. And yet, each and every time that Tony Meola got on the actual field and played a game, he would come up big. He was the definition of a gamer. And so whatever happened in training, again, if form is fallacy, then training at times can be fallacy too. But man, oh man, when that whistle blew and it was a game, Tony would stand on his head. And I was there plenty of times, and he saved my ass plenty of times.
Except in that Romania game when he forgot to cover the near post on Dan Petrescu.
I can do a whole podcast
finished
third,
on that. Had to face Brazil in the round of 16.
I can do a whole podcast on the cheating the cross moment and that game, and why to this day I will stand up for Tony, because the amount of crosses that he anticipated and picked off, I will take that. Even though in the most important moment, he made a crucial, wasn't a mistake, it was just a miscalculation as to, and he got dinged. And we knew at some point it would happen, but the risk was worth the reward of him cutting out things at the pass. Anyway, we spent a lot of time on goalkeeper, much too much for goalkeepers, whether it's Tony or anybody else. All right, I have, and this is, I could have picked others, including Frankie Haydick and Graham Zusi, and there's certainly others out there, the great Fernando Clavijo, rest in peace. I am going to go with current LAFC head coach, Steve Cherundolo, at my right back position. He gives me a consistency. He gives me a quality. He gives me a quiet leadership that I am going to need on that right-hand side.
Just rattle off the whole back four.
All right. Next to him, Marcelo Balboa. All right. I should say that notwithstanding my incredible ego and arrogance, I've decided that I cannot be included in this 11. Marcelo Balboa. All right, my partner in crime back there on the back line, I picked him over guys like Gooch, and as I said, myself and others out there. I'll have him on the right-hand side in all his glory and all his hair. The man was incredibly gifted and skilled, but he was a killer. He would take you, the ball, the first 3 rows of the stands, and everything else out in one fell swoop and not even miss a beat. Next to him, current Atlanta United, I don't know what his title is right now, but Mucky Muck over there for now. Carlos Bocanegra over the likes of Eddie Pope, likes of, I don't know, Demerit. It can go on and on about center backs. We've had plenty of great center backs over the years right now. So I have Carlos Bocanegra, nice cultured left foot. Obviously the captain for many, many years. So I got those leadership qualities there. And then on the left-hand side, one of the great left foots in U.S. soccer history. And this is where I was really torn because I wanted to put Demarcus Beasley, but I am actually going to go with Jeff Agus on that left-hand side. So that's my back four. Jeff Agus, again, a consistency, a cultured left foot that I think is going to come into play when he's diming out a lot of the incredible attacking talent that I have in front of him.
My 2 big glaring omissions I was going to highlight were going to be Eddie Pope and Demarcus Beasley. So I would have had Pope above, frankly, either Balboa or Bocanegra.
Okay.
And I would have had Beasley above Agus.
Okay. Let's go on and I played kind of a 4-4-2. Okay, I know that's a kind of a throwback too, so you can yell and scream about me scream about it that I don't do that. On the right hand side, I have Tab Ramos. When people ask me who the greatest male American soccer player is, I always say that it is Tab Ramos. He was a man out of time. He was slumming it with us in terms of his ability, his low center of gravity, his ability to keep the ball, his ability to get out of trouble. At times, I almost felt bad playing on the same team and on the same field with him because he was obviously head and shoulders above us in terms of his ability and how he thought about the game and obviously how he played about the game. Now, that means that someone like Kobe Jones doesn't make my 11 over there on the kind of right side. And I know Kobe played different positions, but I'm playing a kind of a 4-4-2. In the middle of my 4-4-2, I have Claudio Reyna and Landon Donovan, okay? And they can do different things here. Now, I know I'm giving up some bite. I know I'm giving up some defensive midfield type of responsibilities here, but you know what? I'm throwing caution to the wind. I'm going forward. I'll beat you 4-3 if I have to. I know maybe I'm going to let in some goals and it's going to be problematic. Now, keep in mind, that's over players like I mentioned Pablo Mastriani in my five-a-side, Jermaine Jones, Michael Bradley, John O'Brien, these types of players over there. So Claudio Reyna and Landon Donovan in the middle, and on the left-hand side, Christian Pulisic. So my middle 4 is Tab Ramos, Claudio Reyna, Landon Donovan, and Christian Pulisic.
I'll say I've seen worse as far as people take as far as people take liberties with positions in these all-time best 11s. Like France football put together a global best 11, and they turned Pelé and Maradona into wing-backs. It was one of the most shameful things I've ever seen in my life. So
I try to be realistic.
Yeah, this is unbalanced. Okay. I mean, if you were going to put together a truly functional team, you would drop one of the attacking players and have a holding midfielder, Michael Bradley type. Have a midfield 3 of, let's say, Bradley, Reyna, and Ramos, and then a front 3 of. I don't want to step on the guys you're about to say, but you have,
Well, I'm going
four out and out attacking players, and Landon, Christian, and then the 2 you're about to say. So you would drop one of those if you were doing like a more functional
Yes,
team.
Exactly. I'd have much more of a defensive midfielder type of thing going on here. And then up top, I have the great Clint Dempsey, our colleague, coming up, by the way, in Qatar for our World Cup coverage. Can't wait to work with him in November and December during the World Cup. And that means that someone like Clint Mathis doesn't get the nod there, or my friend. Well, hold on a sec. Next to him, I have Brian McBride, and I've talked a lot about how important Brian McBride was as a player and how much I loved having a Brian McBride. And I only played kind of at the start of his career, and he only got better and better with time. But yes, he's a kind of traditional and classic type of 9 striker up there, but he was much more than just what he did with his head. Smart player, great guy in the locker room, and would run through a wall, as is evidenced by what we showed a couple weeks ago with the bloody game in the World Cup against Italy. So that means that a guy like Josie Altidore did not make my lineup, and a guy like Eric Winalda did not make my lineup. I'm sure I'll hear about that.
Well, you'd have to have Eric Ronaldo as a left-sided midfielder because to hear him tell it, that's where he played half his games.
Yeah, he did. He did play out there. So either way, he doesn't make it, either as a striker or he's second fiddle to Christian Pulisic. That should really, really excite him.
All right.
Anything else you want to say about that?
No. I think, like I said, just Pope and Beasley are the two names I went
exactly.
down to,
And look, you'd be fine with Pope, Beasley, others out there. So there could be a lot of changes. I got to make a choice at some point. And I know, while I'm kind of front loading a lot of creative talent, I'm also in the back kind of going with much more consistency, because like a guy like Beasley, who could just do incredible things and get up and down and do different things. He brings a whole lot to the table there, but maybe I'm being a little boring, and maybe I'm being a little pragmatic when it comes to some of those decisions in the back there.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops every week. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.